In the last lecture, we talked about outline, which I suggested that we should probably never use. It's just our edge detection system separating a foreground object from everything else that we're not paying attention to. And then contour line, which helped us get a three-dimensional structure that shows us where the edges of objects are at in relationship to each other throughout space. Today we're going to explore the third type of line that I promised we would get to, which is cross-contour lines. These are lines that describe the surface form of an object rather than its edges, so the three-dimensional volume of the surface form. I'm going to show you a series of images here to explain what I mean. So here's my hand, and I'm going to dunk it into a sink that I had filled with inky water. Well, actually I dunked it and drained it, so this was after the fact. The cross-contour line could be represented by exactly where the water touches my hand. The surface of the water is a perfectly two-dimensional plane. It's only got like length and width. So where it bisects my hand, where it laps up against my hand, tells me exactly where my hand would be like chopped in half if like a blade shot through at that point. Now this line also goes around the back of my hand. You just can't see it because my wrist is not see-through. So what we want to draw is where that line that cuts through the thing would be visible. It's not always the most predictable line. Like you would say, well, this is a pretty bizarre line here, but you'll see what it's doing is it's wrapping to conform to like the tendons and the veins in my hand. It's not just a simple curved line ever. As I pull my hand up, well, actually as the water drains out, you'll see that we get a series of different lines that are constantly changing, warping to the surface, the three-dimensional surface. So this is what I mean by the volume of it. It's showing the roundness of the object. Now as we get down here, the line starts to break up pretty dramatically. It wraps around my hand, and then here it comes around behind my knuckle, and my knuckle covers where I could see the line, and then it pops back up in the little webby bits here. And it goes, wraps around behind the knuckle, behind the finger, and pops up again in the webby bits. And so on, back along here. So even though these lines on the paper will look like separate lines, in my understanding of what's going on, this is one continuous path chopping the object in a two-dimensional plane. So I'll go ahead and keep pulling my hand out here, and when we stack them up we get something that looks like this. So this is like a topographic map or any kind of drawing like that that shows depth, where this is something closer to your vision and these represent things further away from your vision. So you'll see here I have not described the edges at all. The edges only show up where these lines pile together. These lines completely represent me trailing across the surface of the object. If you remember from talking about the saccadic motions, we tend to edge detect and ignore surface. We need to start developing an awareness of surface and get away from pure edge detection. Contour line's great. I love drawing with contour line, but it's part of the edge detection system. So we're now trying to move into looking at surface, the forehead, the things we tend to ignore. I can chop through an object in any different direction. So here I was like slicing down, more like I'm stacking up layers of pancakes and I'm looking down from the top. Here I'm going to go ahead and pull my hand out of the water, but I'm going to slice more horizontally, so it'd be like looking at a stack of cakes from the side, and we'll go ahead and pull it up. Now you'll see here what we're doing is we're also accommodating for the fact that the thumb is really far forward in the space compared to the wrist. You know, there's like 6, 7, 8, 9 inches in between there and there. So we actually get two sets of lines, one for this object and one for this object. And then as the finger pokes up here, it gets its own line. Notice here I can actually see all the way around the back of the object. That can happen. You can get like a circular line there where you could see all the way around the top of the object. That's fine. And these lines will go. And now we're getting to the point where these two separate lines are, now they're going to merge, and it's one line coming. Oh, we missed the line right there. But one line coming all the way through. The fingers are now multiple circles going around. And we combine all those lines together and we get something like this. Again, there's no contour, there's no outline, it's just where these lines round out and stop on the edges. Now, we have a problem about choosing when I'm saying which way are we going to cut the object. We have a problem of choosing which way are we going to cut the object up. This woman's pants here, her crazy workout pants here, can kind of help us. What we're looking for is the thing that makes the object feel the most round. So on her legs here, these lines don't make anything feel particularly round. They're pretty straight up and down. These lines that wrap around here help show the roundness of the leg a little bit better. And the lines on the bottom here show the roundness pretty well as well. We run into a bigger problem when all of a sudden the object bends. When the object's straight, okay, we can pick one direction and I can just say I'm going to cut all in that direction across the thing and it'll be fine. When the leg bends, the temptation is to do what her pants are doing and bend with the leg. And we'll get to the point where we can do that. But for this assignment with cross contour, I don't want us doing that. What we'll have to do is, if we choose this direction, because this is really showing the roundness of the leg, that would be great. But when we get to here, all of a sudden, it's not so effective. It's just looking like a straight vertical line. We run into the same problem if we say, okay, well, if we go this way, it makes it look nice and round, but then all of a sudden, we're winding up with like not so round lines coming across the leg this way. So these 45s then become really helpful because I could say I'm chopping the object in that direction. Whoa, what's with this zoom? Alright, there we go. We could cut across this way. Now that lets us move across a curve and still show roundness. So we could cut across that and still be moving around the leg. So in this drawing, I would probably choose one of these 45-degree angles. Something like that. You could also do like what's on the ball here and do that topographic map where instead of chopping into something, you're slicing back across it. That would be reasonable as well. And if you did that to her leg, it would probably look something like this. Just to give you a sense. It's really hard to figure this stuff out, by the way. This isn't an easy task that I'm setting you. But that's okay. In struggling with it, we'll learn a lot. Okay, so that might be something like that. And then you'd come down here and we'd be chopping back. But the parts that are closest to us would be circles like that. So that's the first task you're going to have to set yourself is, which direction are you planning on cutting this thing in? After you've figured that out, then it's a matter of figuring, okay, like at that direction of cut, how would these lines wrap around the object? You see this a lot in superhero costumes, comic book drawings, because you're trying to make people like Spider-Man here in these really dynamic poses. You run into a problem of foreshortening. Foreshortening is when something's coming out like straight at you, like his leg is, in a way that we're not used to seeing it. So when you form your cartoon brain image of an idea of a leg, it doesn't match what this looks like. So if we just saw an outline of this, we'd be like, I don't know, that doesn't look like a leg, it looks like some crazy thing. If you put cross contour lines around things, they help you understand the roundness of them. They help you understand that it's coming towards you. And then you'll be able to make sense of this and you'll see it as a leg coming towards you. So we should be using cross contour a lot in the sketching phase of our drawings to help us understand things as coming towards us. Those lines may not be there in the end, but they can help us see things as three-dimensional while we're getting started, and then we erase them later. You'll see here in this image by Victor Vasarely how powerful this effect is, where it really looks like something's bulging out, looking like something's puckering in. what the most, like there's a worm crawling here kind of. The most important thing to take from Victor Raster Valley is that for this illusion to be really effective, the lines have to get closer together and further apart. If you maintain a consistent distance, it doesn't matter if they curve or not. It's not going to look particularly round. So this here is a fantastic image of what not to do on this assignment. When you're sketching the object in, and I'll do a demo, you can sketch in with contour line, never outline. So first off, this has an outline. This is Thanksgiving turkey territory. No Thanksgiving turkey, but you can sketch in a contour line. In the end though, when you get to drawing with pen, that should go away. It should get erased. Also, these lines pretty much maintain consistent distance between them. There's no like warping to show where the knuckles are at. There's no pinching and bulging to make the thing look three-dimensional. They're also very flat. They don't curve. Like if this hand is supposed to be moving away from us, the line should curve up a little bit more dramatically. This is a much better example that a student of mine did. The only thing I would say to take away from this is just get rid of those lines in the background, and that would allow these lines here to curve around the back a little bit more. So instead of carrying straight across, it would be nice if this looked like it was wrapping around the back. The problem is if I was actually like tracing my finger along the surface of the table and then went up the game controller and then followed all of this around and then went back down the backside of the game controller, that line would come again all the way down to here and then move over, and then as it hit the game controller again, it would pop back up and then hit the top here. So it's a, and like this much of it would just disappear behind. So the fact that it's very shallow, it's very shallow along here and barely comes up and then connects across here is kind of artificial and flat. It makes the controller look like it's plugged into the table, like it would go down below the table, but it's squished into the table like some putty. This one here is much better. It has none of those lines in the background. There's no outlines or contour lines around it. The shapes are all just represented by lines moving across them. The only complaint I have about this one is that right when they got to the teeth, all of a sudden they started cutting horizontally instead of vertically. Notice here also where there's something that really pops up in front of something else. This line here looks like it's going back behind it, and then these are just a series of lines hovering in front of it. So the lines don't always need to all match up, which is the mistake they made here. The lines can disconnect from each other for a bit. That's like this line is going back, it disappears, it shows back up over here, and then we cut along this line. They should always pretty much stop along the same edge, but you'll see like here these lines aren't connected. This line's not connected to that, but they stop on the same edge. That will reinforce the illusion as well. And here's another fantastic example by a student. Notice like right here, the line really looks like it's curving around the edge. Because we have two eyes, we have binocular vision, we can really see quite a bit around the side of things. So you want to represent that. It's not like this line would just keep going straight here. This line does curve. You get really back around the edge of the object, back around the edge of the object. This line here just looks like it's going to continue off straight, and it's not as three-dimensional as, say, a line like this that curves. So as you hit the edges, you really want to curve. And this drawing's a really fantastic student example. So that's basically the concept. I'll go ahead and do some sketching now to show you like the process that we should go through.